Good afternoon or good morning, whatever time you're watching this video. This is a tutorial on how to submit a Tier 2 chemical inventory report through ePlan in the state of Iowa. ePlan is the only way that the state of Iowa accepts Tier 2 reports, so it's important that you feel comfortable with it and are able to submit a report accurately on it. To be clear, this is a report about how to use ePlan and submit a Tier 2 report in the state of Iowa, not necessarily about the regulations of Tier 2 reporting. So, with all that said, to start off, you can go to erplan.net and then click the login page on the right. If you have your Access ID and password, you're already in great shape and can sign in right away. If not, if you don't have your company password or Access ID, you can click the Contact Us button in the bottom left. On there, you can fill out a form, and in the comment section, let them know what you need help with, and they should be able to help you out get your account back. If you're brand new to Tier 2 reporting and your company does not already have an account, you can click the Request an Account button here and fill out your information there to request an account. So let's go ahead and sign in. Immediately before we start anything with Tier 2 reporting, I want to point out the Account Information button in the top right. Here you can change your email and password associated with the account and other relevant information if you'd like. So, to start with Tier 2 reporting, if you've reported in the past and you want to copy your information to this year, you want to start with this middle column, Copy Data. Here you can click from the previous year on this drop-down menu. In my case, it's going to be the reporting year of 2023 to the current year of 2024. Then you can click Copy Data, in which case it will start to load, and a new button will replace this Copy Data button that will say 2024. You can click that button and start your new report with all the information you left off with from last year. In my case, I've already started my 2024 report, so if you're resuming your reporting, you can click on 2024 or whatever your current year is, or if you're brand new to reporting and not copying or resuming, you can click this drop-down menu and click 2024 and then click Continue. One other thing I want to point out is that ePlan, the Iowa DNR, only uses ePlan for Tier 2 reporting. All of these other tabs here we do not utilize, and you want to make sure that you're on FCRA 312 Tier 2. So let's click on the current year. This is the Tier 2 filing home. So when you first get to the filing home, you want to make sure that you're on the correct year, just so then you know that you're not editing a previous year and wasting time you don't need to. The filing home is where we jump into a lot of different Tier 2 information, and like the title says, it's kind of like our home base. So if you ever get lost, you can return to the filing home by clicking the Tier 2 Filing Management button in the top left. From this page, you're able to edit facility information, contact information, and chemical information. Before we move on, I want to walk you through a little bit of the layout of this page. You can see each one of the facilities that I've entered in, as well as all of their associated information. Let's say you wanted to start a facility from scratch. You could do Add New Facility button right here, or if you have old facilities you want to get rid of, there's the Delete Facilities button here. If you want to edit your facility, you can click on the facility name or click the Edit Facility button over here. If you want to edit, delete, or add a new contact, you can click on the contact themselves, click the Delete button, or click the Add New Contact button here. Finally, if you want to edit, delete, or add a new chemical, you can click on the chemical itself or click Add New Chemical here. You'll notice in this section I don't have a delete button for these chemicals because this facility has already been submitted. If you've already submitted your facility, you can't delete your chemicals, but down here you can see that I could delete this chemical for this facility. So with that covered, let's dive into each individual section and walk through some of the data entry. We'll click on our test facility here so we can edit facility information. All of this is going to be pretty straightforward. Some of it's required and some of it's not. A few things I want to highlight are facility notes, which are helpful to give more context about your facility if you think that's nice to know for emergency planners and emergency responders. In this case, I've put that this is a test facility. You can then put the address of your facility. And another thing I wanted to highlight was the latitude and longitude. The bars will start off empty like this, and to get your latitude and longitude, it will automatically look it up from the address that you've put in, and then you can click the validate lat/long to make sure that it got the correct latitude and longitude there. Finally, we have type of facility. So because you're submitting a Tier 2 report, you are automatically subject to the EPCRA 312 facility, Tier 2, and EPCRA Section 311 facility, because those have the same thresholds and barriers to be subject to. So you'll know for sure that those two are a yes, and then the other ones you can check yes or no in your own discretion. Finally, there's the signature at the bottom here that needs to be authorized by either an owner/operator or an authorized representative or the owner/operator. We'll go ahead and click Save and Continue. This brings us to our facility identification page. Here, the two required things that need to be entered are your NAICS code as well as your Dun & Bradstreet number. So how to do that is this drop-down menu, click NAICS or Dun & Bradstreet, and then find your ID value and fill it in, and then click Add. Of course, I'm choosing just a random value for my NAICS code. And then for Dun & Bradstreet, we know that some people don't have a Dun & Bradstreet number, so on that, you can just put NA in the ID value. I'm going to go ahead and delete one of my NAICS codes so that it's not duplicated. And then when we're done, we can go ahead and click Next. State applicable fields, there is no information needed here, so you click Next. And finally, documents, there's also no information that's required here. I'll talk a little bit more about documents when we work on chemicals later on in the tutorial. Once we're done here, you can click back to Online Filing Home to go back to our filing home. A quick note about contact information. For every facility, there are 4 required contacts. There is 2 emergency contacts, 1 owner/operator, and 1 Tier 2 information contact. A special note is that if you are reporting an extremely hazardous substance, like there is an extremely hazardous substance, sulfuric acid and lead acid batteries, then a 5th contact needs to be added, and that's the facility emergency coordinator. Another quick note about contacts is that they can be duplicated. Your emergency contact can be the same as your Tier 2 information contact and your owner/operator, but your 2 emergency contacts need to be different. That is for safety reasons, so that if one does not answer, the other one will be available. So let's go ahead and just look at one of these contacts, and I can walk you through how to enter in a new contact. Let's go ahead and click Add New Contact. We're going to do an emergency contact in this case. I'm just going to make things up here, so let's put Safety Manager and put Test. For email, we're going to put my email and then click Save and Continue. An important note specific to emergency contacts is that it needs 2 unique phone numbers, one for 24-hour and one for any other kind of phone type. So we just added a 24-hour one there, and now let's say we have a work phone we want to enter in. And once you're done with entering those in, you can click Next. On the facility association page, this is where if this particular contact was also associated with other facilities, you could add it to those facilities as well. So let's say currently I'm editing Test Facility 2, but they're also associated with Test Facility and Test. We could click down here and say that they are associated as an emergency contact, and then click Add. You want to make sure that you don't also click this box here for the orange box, at least not for the same contact type, because that will duplicate the contact. A lot of times there is confusion and people think that they need to click this box to add the contact to the facility that they're editing, and that will lead to duplicate contacts. So in this case, I've already edited and added my contact that I wanted to, so I can move on without adding it to any other facilities. Again, we're at document upload. There's no required documents, and so we can go back to online filing home. Finally, the meat of the reporting is chemical information, and this is where it gets a little bit more complicated, so we'll walk through this section too. First, we'll start by walking through diesel fuel, a non-EHS, and then we'll walk through a really common one, which is lead acid batteries. We'll start by editing. So I've already entered in this information, but I can also show you, if you're starting from scratch, how to enter in the information. Here you can type in the chemical name, and a lot of times the CAS number will fill in for you. So we'll say diesel fuel. You do want to make sure you check that CAS number on your SDS. For diesel and gas specifically, this question will pop up. This is not in a retail gas station, so I'm going to click no. Days on site, 365. We're going to say we have an above ground storage tank, and there's always diesel fuel in it. Pure, liquid. Again, these hazards are pulled from the safety data sheet, so you want to make sure you just reference that constantly as you're entering information. Down here in quantity, we have our maximum quantity as well as our average daily amount. So we'll say that we can get a maximum amount of 1,500 and an average daily amount of 10,000 for diesel. And this is all in pounds. No matter what form it is, if it's in solid, liquid, gas, it needs to report it in Tier 2 in pounds. So we'll click Save and Continue. This page is our chemical storage locations. This is where you specify what kind of storage it's in, the pressure, the temperature, as well as where it's located at. So again, we're going to say that we're in an above ground storage tank, and it's ambient pressure and ambient temperature. And location is in the northwest corner of the main parking lot. For location, I give the guidance of you just want it to be descriptive enough for emergency responders to have it be useful. Doesn't have to be a paragraph, but just something enough that when they pull into your facility, that it's somewhat obvious where this location is. You can click this button if the location is confidential, and this box is optional. You can click the maximum amount at this location. So we'll go ahead and click Add for that location, and here you can see all the locations I've already entered in. Once you're done entering locations, we'll click Next. This page is for chemical components of a mixture. This diesel fuel is pure, so we're not going to add anything here. Next. No state applicable fields. Update and continue. And documents. So I told you I was going to talk about documents. There are none required, but some can be useful. A couple examples of documents that you could upload that are useful are a safety data sheet for the chemical that you're reporting, or in some cases a site plan is really useful. If you are at a location that is a little bit more complicated, if you're at a facility that's a little bit more complicated, and it's hard to describe the storage location for the chemicals, you could update or upload a site plan to help with that description. Let's say you have coordinates on your site plan such as C1 through C12, and then if they're on your site plan, you can reference those coordinates in your chemical storage location. So just a little something to keep in mind. Whatever is most helpful for emergency responders, that's really what we're trying to go for with a lot of Tier 2 chemical inventory reporting, is trying to be helpful for those emergency planners and emergency responders. We're going to go back to online filing home once we're done with our documents. And that's how we did diesel. Next one I want to dive into is lead acid batteries. This is a really common one to report that can get confusing. So when you report lead acid batteries, you can do it in a couple ways. You can report the battery as a whole as lead acid battery, or you could report the components of it. I think the simpler way to go about it is by reporting lead acid battery as a whole. So that's what I've done here. We're going to go in to edit it. So something unique about lead-acid batteries, a lot of times the safety data sheet does not have a CAS number for the lead-acid battery as a whole. And this trips people up because they think that they have to have a CAS number. You don't technically have to. If you can supply one, always do, but you don't have to. So in this case, we're not going to supply one because there's not one on the safety data sheet that I was referencing. Days on site, 365. It's a mixture, it's a solid, and then I kind of just put in the hazards here. Same thing as the diesel. We have our maximum and our daily average amount. Click our max code here and our average code here. A lot of times this is going to be the same number since batteries don't fluctuate very often. And we can go ahead and click Save and Continue. Again, we're at storage locations. I'm not going to walk through this portion again, but you can fill in this information and click Add for each new storage location. You can see I've already put one for the forklifts that are parked in the southwest corner of the shed. That's where our batteries are located. The important section I want to highlight for lead-acid battery reporting is the mixture components section. Here, you'll want to report the sulfuric acid component of the lead-acid battery. Whenever you have a mixture that contains an extremely hazardous substance, you have to report the extremely hazardous substance portion of that mixture. You don't necessarily have to report the other substances, such as in lead-acid battery there's lead, so we don't have to actually report the lead. We're going to report the sulfuric acid here. So we'll enter in sulfuric acid as a component we're trying to report. The CAS number will automatically fill out, but you'll want to double check that. You'll see that the EHS button has automatically ticked because the software knows sulfuric acid is an EHS. This is a liquid, and for the maximum amount code, we'll say that it's in the third bracket, and then for the percentage of the mixture that's sulfuric acid, we'll say 40% by weight. If you have a range in your SDS, let's say from 24 to 40% is sulfuric acid, you always have to choose the higher end of the range. So we're going to choose our 40%. We'll click Add to add that component into our mixture, and then we're ready to go on to the next thing. State applicable fields, nothing here again, and then once again, documents, which doesn't have anything that's required. So we'll go back to the online filing home. At this point, your Tier 2 report might be looking ready, like it's ready to be submitted. You've got all your contact information, all your chemical information, and now you're feeling good about submitting it. So what we can do, once you're at this point, is you can click Validate Record. The button is up here or down in the bottom left. On this page, it'll show you if you have any errors for facilities. So you can see 2 of my facilities have passed all checks, but the one we've been editing has a few errors. It'll tell you what kind of errors you have, such as the facility emergency coordinator doesn't have 2 phone numbers, and it'll also give you a link to go fix that error. In this case, let's say we want to submit this test facility and it's passed all checks, so we can continue to go submit that. We'll go click the Select Facilities button, and here you can see because it's passed all checks, it has the pass validation status, and it has a tick box where you can select it to then submit it. One thing I do want to note before we finish our submission is this reporting authorities emails box. If you'd like, you can put whatever emails you'd want to here, including your own. So once you submit, it will automatically send your Tier 2 report to whatever emails you put here. Oftentimes, people like to put the emails of their local county coordinator, so that way, when they submit, if their county coordinator prefers to receive a Tier 2 over email, then they can also submit it to their county and fulfill the LEPC requirement or the Local Emergency Planning Committee requirement at the same time. If you're not sure how your county prefers to receive a Tier 2, what you can do to find out is go to the Tier 2 page on the Iowa DNR website. So that's iowadnr.gov/Tier 2, and that will take you to this page. On this page, we have a county coordinator list. On the county coordinator list, it has how each county prefers to receive a Tier 2, if at all. So going back to ePlan, If your county said that they wanted to receive a Tier 2 via email, you could put their email in this box before you click Submit. Oftentimes people ask me if at this point they should print PDF, and while you can, if you go ahead and click Print PDF before you click Submit, your PDF will say Draft across the whole thing. So in this case, we'll want to check this box, enter in whatever emails we'd like, and then click Submit. Now I'm not going to submit because I have a test facility and I don't want to put that into the database, but once you do submit, it'll redirect you to a page that has invoice on the top of it. In the state of Iowa, Tier 2 reporting doesn't cost anything, so that page will be blank. And then the last step for the Tier 2 reporting process with ePlan is to then export your report. We can do that by going to the Export Report button up here and clicking Download PDF. Here you can tick the box of whatever facility you would like to add to your PDF report and then click Create PDF. With that PDF, you can then send that off to your local fire department via mail or email and send that off to your county coordinator and their preferred method. With that, that concludes our Iowa ePlan tutorial. If you need further resources, you can go to iowadnr.gov/tier2 or call the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. Thank you.